Hello, everyone, and good morning to wherever you are in the world, or good evening. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe, and welcome to another author interview from my May lineup. Now, my guest today is from Jamaica, but now living in North Dakota, United States. She works as a full-time nurse, but spends most of her spare time writing fictional stories. Her favorite genres are romance, science fiction, fantasy, and historical fiction, thriller, and paranormal. And those are the genres that she has written unpublished stories in, except for historical fiction. She has been writing as long as 9 years of age, and she loves doing it as a hobby. When she is not writing, she's playing video games, sightseeing, and being a proud mother to her 19-month-old daughter. She recently published her first book and hopes to gain some more avid readers to share more of her stories around the world. So let's give a huge round of applause to a first timer here on the channel, indie author Antonett Douglas. Antonett, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So before we dive into your book, is there anything more you would like to add about your background or any other little details about yourself?
I think that pretty much sums it all.
All right, all right. Well, then let's dive in. So, viewers, this interview will be focusing on Antonett's book, Birth of a Butterfly, which I'm very excited to explore. So, Antoinette, what can you tell us about your novel, Birth of a Butterfly?
All right. So, Birth of a Butterfly is going to be about this girl who, because of what happened in her past, she's forced to live in a certain deplorable situation.
Mm,
And in regards to that as well, she has a roommate because people are going to be introduced to this very early in the book. She's going to have a roommate that doesn't really treat her that well, but she
mm.
doesn't have a choice because of her circumstances. And then it's going to explore how she navigates through her work life. And the only people that she's actually going to have is going to be her friends because readers are going to be introduced. Her mom died. That's going to be like on the first, like the second chapter. So they realize that her mom died. She has no one basically. So it's just her friends that she lean on to. And then, of course, she is facing a lot of hardships, but she's not giving up. And even though she has close friends, she's not going to tell them what she's going through just because
Mm.
of past, because her past is very detrimental to her survival. So she won't tell them. They'll just think she's happy, she's just working, she's just trying to make her a better living for herself. They won't really know. And then, of course, going to come along her love interest. For of course, she's not going to really be interested in him because honestly, she has so much on her mind. She's going through so
Right.
much that she's like, I don't really have time for this. But eventually, he's going to come back again and things are just going to blossom from there. But when she thinks things are going good, then the bomb just drops and her past just comes unraveling. And it's going to force her in a state where it's either run, survive, or die.
Wow. And that's really fascinating. And I love that description that you gave of your book. It's sort of, I say this like in a very positive way, in that it sort of doesn't match the cover. And that's the beautiful thing when the cover can persuade you that it's going to be an entirely different story. But from what you
Yeah.
explained to me, this is a heavy hitter romance story that's going to deal with a lot of, I imagine, sensitive topics, sensitive issues, but it's going to approach it in a very respectful and mature manner, which I'm very eager to continue reading and learn more.
Yes. And also, as you mentioned, the cover, I can talk about the cover if you want.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Please tell us about the cover.
All right.
Yes, finally we have someone returning their book.
Yes. So, basically, of course, it's a figure of speech, birth of a butterfly, and we all know how it goes with the butterfly. They're a caterpillar going to the chrysalis, and then they turn into a butterfly. But it's much more than that because each stage is crucial for the butterfly to be a butterfly. It's not
Right.
easy. And even at the end, when the butterfly is emerging from the chrysalis, they have to do it in a way that their wings are not even damaged in the process. So it's a
Mm.
lot. And even while they're in the chrysalis, there's a lot going on with them. So hence my title, because my character here is Sequoia.
Okay.
She's gonna be going through a lot. Like a lot of stuff are just gonna be happening to her. She's gonna struggle. But at the end of the day, it's trying to make her into who she's supposed to be. So as you can see on the cover, her face, yes, there's a guy there. But as you can see, he doesn't have like a pleased look on his face. He's watching her, but she's looking at the butterflies because
Right.
even though he wants to be loved, she wants love, she's focused on the butterflies because she wants to transition into what she's supposed to be despite all the struggles going on in her life. So that's why she's looking at the butterfly. And of course, there's a backpack beside her, which indicates that she's always on the run because people are going to be introduced to that at the early end, first of the book.
Mm-hmm.
She is always on the run, and that's what's going to end up in the ending as well, too. So he's there and he has a flower down. He wants to show her love, but he can't because something's holding her back, and he knows that.
Right.
Only that, something is holding him back because he has secrets of his own. And that's why their expressions are like these undercovers. Yes.
Nice. And what I also really appreciate, well, thank you for showing the cover of your book, but I also really appreciate is that the guy kind of looks like not in the frame, like he's not like in like her world. He's sort of like on the outside because I really do like that because it feels like they're supposed to be in the same frame, but they're not in the same
Yeah.
frame. She's having her own thing, like you said, she's looking at the butterfly, and he's in his own world. He's looking at her, but not really. And I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, I could have made my book cover be two lovers kissing, walking hands, something like that. But it can't be because my book is not just about that. My book goes deeper than that. And it's not just about their romance, but it's about her internal struggles as well. And hence, that's why the cover again.
Nice. So let's dive into Birth of a Butterfly. So starting off, so in your borrow that thing again for sending to me, you've been writing for a very, very long time. When did you sort of decide that being a writer, being an author was something that you wanted to pursue? Your aha moment.
Everything started, as I said, when I was 9. My teacher, she used to have a son that she used to take to the class at times, and he'd come and sit beside me. He was really younger than me. And then he was sitting down and he was like making drawings. And then I don't know how it happened, but all I know is that I took the paper from him and I started drawing and telling him a story. And like every day he would look forward to me coming and I would add more to the story and add more to the story. So it's like since then I started to realize, okay, I think I have a knack for this. But when it was until I was 12 years old, I actually started writing some folklore story because I'm from Jamaica. And then
Oh.
I started like reading it to the class. So every week I would read it to the class and they look forward to it. They would laugh. I wish I could find those stories. Honestly, I wish I could, but they're all gone. But that's how it started. And then when I went into high school, I wasn't really like the computer person. So I used to have a notebook, like those
Right.
exercise books, and I used to start writing on my stories. I even my books that I even have my class notes in, I would just like skip to the middle and just start writing stories. So I have like a tons of book even back home that have a lot of stories. And then throughout the years, I guess when I went to nursing school, that's when I started putting them down on the computer. And of course,
Oh, okay.
some, get rid of some. I would even splice some from the other. And I think, yeah, it was then. But publishing, though, took a while for me and the courage because I'm like, oh my God, there's so many authors out there. Like, what's going to make me?
Right.
But of course, I know we're going to dive into this, but of course, I'm always reminded about J.K. Rowling. Like, my brother is always telling me about her. And of course, I've read about her too. And I'm like, yeah, that's why even in my book, I think I have a quote that says struggle and criticisms are prerequisite to greatness. So I know that, of course, one day I'll get there. Maybe not today, tomorrow, next few years, but I will. So, I just dived out and decided, hey, let me just publish this and get it over with, get the fear over with, and see what it's like.
Nice. That's actually really, really cool. I'm actually glad that, you have like this very passion like early on and almost similar to me, I'm Antoinette. Like I started writing at a very young age in elementary school and it sort of just grew and grew and yeah, sort of around the same thing as you did, like
Yeah.
publishing and everything, which we're going to be talking about later in the interview. But it's quite a surreal experience getting a passion that you've worked on for a long time down on the print side and actually holding a physical copy of it. So let's actually rewind a bit to like the stages. So when you decided to write the initial draft of Birth of a Butterfly, what was the need or desire you want to satisfy for your future readers?
The main thing I wanted was connection and relatability. Like, I wanted that when I write this story, people are able to relate to the character, not even all the characters, because when you read the book, the supporting characters, all of their different things that they're going through, it's not going to be discussed in details to bore anyone, but it's just enough for you to realize, oh, wow, I can relate to this character. I can relate to that one. So that was the main thing in my mind when I was writing it.
Nice. And then as you advance in the writing process, what was sort
Of course. Hey, sorry about that.
oh,
So
no problem.
yeah, the main thing was I wanted to inspire, right? Because as I said, I wrote my characters so they're relatable. So at the end, the readers can be like, wow, this is really inspiring. Like, I didn't expect this. So that was the main thing that I wanted my readers to get, to be inspired by this that I wrote.
Awesome. And then to the next question. So when you finally got it out there after edits, revisions, getting an editor, getting a cover artist, and putting it out there, what was the initial feedback like? And was your promise validated by the viewers and the readers? And as a bonus question, is there a review that sticks out to you?
Of course. All right. So I did my ebook first. I launched that on my payhip. So I launched that in January 1st, and that one was really good. Like, I got a lot of people to download it and stuff, and get the book. I launched my paperback in February. It's a bit slow, but it's still coming. But the ebook is the one that a lot of people actually dived into first and mostly. So of course, with the feedback now, I have been getting good feedback so far. Everyone loves it. Um, of course, when it comes to the inspiration part, of course, everyone tells me yes, they've been inspired by it. Like, even one of my readers said, "Oh my God!" While she was reading it, she was down, going through some things, and she said when she read my book, she's like, "Oh my God, I gotta continue because this is really like speaking to me." She even told me she could even relate to one of my supporting characters, like she knew someone like that. I'm like, yeah. And then, of course, the one that stand out, of course, was from a good friend of mine and my coworker. I really appreciated the support that she took the time out to buy my book. She read it like, I don't know if it's in the space of like 8 hours. She read the book. Like, as soon as she bought it, she sent me a message. I just got your book. And then by midnight, I think it was like 3 in the morning, she sent me a
Oh my
message.
gosh.
She said she said she couldn't put down my book. Like, I was just so shocked. I'm like, she's my number one fan, Sabina. And of course, her review really made an impact on me. And of course, it did do what it was supposed to do in my book, which is inspire. And of course, I got it right here. I can read it. All right.
That's
So
awesome.
course, I was looking forward because like this one really stands out. She says, I love everything about it, all the action, the true friendship, the romance, plus it is so inspiring. I was on my toes when I was reading those action parts. You should see me. That dream of her mom in it and the butterfly brought tears to my eyes. It reminded me so much of my story about the butterflies and my mom. Every time when I'm outside and thinking of my mom and a butterfly shows up, goes around me, lands on my knee, or when they are in the flower, they stay there so I can touch them. They always take the sadness away when I see them and bring a little smile to my face. Love this book.
Wow. Okay, you're definitely probably the first author that actually has read a review from their book channels. So if that's not good marketing for a book, I don't know what is. But that's actually really, really great that your friend spoke so highly of your book.
Yeah.
And that's what we all want as authors, is to make that connection, to find those readers. Because now, getting into the more serious side, being an author is a very lonely venture. You spend hours and hours working on a project for years, not knowing if it's going to connect or resonate with your prospective audience. And when you put it out there, there's always that voice in the back of your head, that voice of imposter syndrome, of whether or not am I actually going to be doing this. I'm putting my foot into an industry where there are Goliaths and Titans who have more experience than I do. And that can dissuade anyone in any business, in any field, from pursuing their passion. So, my question to you, Antonett, and this is a two-parter: have you ever had those moments of imposter syndrome? And what has disciplined you to continue writing, because it is your passion? It is something that you love.
All right. Of course, I've experienced that a lot. That's why it's taken me so long to publish my book. I've actually written 4 books, but they're
Okay.
yes, they're all unpublished. And I wrote them like years ago, but they're all unpublished. So coming forward with this one, as I was saying, it was really hard. I was like, do I really, should I do this? Like, am I like, there's, as you said, there's so many giants. Like, there are so many big names out there, and there are like so many people who are just, blossoming. I'm like, oh my, like, what's going to make someone look at me? Why are they going to be like, oh, let's read this book? So it was really hard. I did have doubts. And of course, it took me a while before I decided to publish. I was there just kind of procrastinating, doubting myself. And I'm like, but I have all these books and I know that I can write. And I just have all these feelings and there are all these imaginations, all these stuff that need to go on a paper. I'm like people need to read this. So I started pushing and I'm like, you know what, you can do this. Just put it out there. And, of course, I talked to some of my friends who are really close to me. And of course, my brother and my mother, and they're all like, you've been writing from you were young. Like, come on, the world deserves to know what's going on. So put it out there. So my family really encouraged me a lot. And they're like, you can do it. Just put it out there. Of course,
Awesome.
I did. Hesitantly, I did. And as I said, I was really nervous. I was scared. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But as I said, the feedback has been good. And when you get these good feedbacks, it helps me as a writer to grow. And as I said, I'm all for constructive criticism. I have no problem with that because it's my first time and I want to learn and I want to grow as an author. I know there's going to be negative and positives, and just got to learn how to put them all together and just continue to press on and do my best. Because, come on, you know, that's just how life is. Someone is always, when probably 99 people will say, wow, that's a beautiful book. And then there will be this one person that says, no, it wasn't. And you're like, oh my God. And you might feel really sad because it's, even though it's just one person, you'd be like, oh my God, they had to say this negativity about my book. But no, I try to push on and say no. As I said, I'm all for constructive criticisms and I just want to grow as an author and I want to learn. There's so much I'm still learning.
Right.
Honestly, before I even published, I didn't even do all of those stuff. I didn't do any like pre-marketing or anything like that because I was scared of putting it out though. So I didn't even do that part. So I just dropped right in. And of course, as I said, I'm learning a lot and it will make me better so that when I do decide to drop my second book, hopefully it'll be much, much better than the first one.
Awesome. And you actually sort of jumped into the next part of the interview, which I always like to talk about with my authors now, and actually started answering my questions, which is now the business side of being an author. So let's actually jump right in. So, Antoinette, when you crafted your story and you finally got to the point where you said, this is good to publish, did you initially automatically want to go the indie route, or did you want to try your hand at traditional?
Sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry. This won't make it in the interview. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. So go ahead. You were saying the traditional versus indie.
Yes. So when you crafted your story and got to the point where you want to sell it and market it, Which route did you initially want to start with? Traditional publishing or self indie publishing?
Definitely self-publishing. That was the route I wanted to go. I didn't really know much about traditional. I did do a little research online, but based on my research, I'm like, indie sounds like where I want to go. And then, of course, the lady that helped me with everything, she did give me some insight as well, and she was really good at helping me. Maitia, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yeah, and Kashina, of course. So they both kind of helped me with this. Yeah.
Definitely. And I also think what's important for any authors or anyone going into the book publishing world is to really understand like what route you want to go to. I've had a lot of guests on the show who have been indie authors, self-published authors, and recently, I want to say a week ago, I had my first traditionally published author, Stephen Arian. Shout out to him. And he provided a whole bunch of feedback on what it is to be a self published author. And I think that was the dream that a lot of young authors have, is to be traditionally published in a big publishing house. And that's not to say you couldn't, but you really have to understand what you're going into. So for traditionally published, from what Stephen told me, and I could be butchering the information or paraphrasing. Yes, you do get a wider audience. Yes, you do hit worldwide, but it is a business, and you have to understand what publishing house you're really marketing your book to, because certain publishing houses specialize in certain genres of books, be it tour books, angry robots, and so forth. And you really have to understand that as a business, if your book doesn't sell, then that company can just axe your book, take it off the shelf, which is a hard truth to swallow, but it is true. Self publishing, you have a little more creative control over your story, but you have to find your own editors, find your own cover artists, market the heck out of your book. And that's probably the biggest thing is marketing. So there's a lot of pros and cons, which every author has to really research. And I'm still researching that myself. Marketing is probably the big killer for me that I'm still trying to figure out what to do for my third book, which then leads into another important question, which is audience. And I think that's really important to discuss because even if you're writing a book, it's like, oh, I love this. This is something that I'm passionate about. You really have to consider how you're going to market your book to your audience. So, Antonett, I was wondering if you can tell us about that. When you were writing your book, did you write it for a particular audience in mind or a specific reader in mind, or did you write it in the sense that this is a book that you would want to read? And how important is it for authors to really understand the audience that they're writing for the genre they're writing for?
All right. So for me, of course, writing is like a therapy for me. So every time I write, it's mostly for myself. But while I'm writing, of course, when I start writing, then the audience comes to me and I'm like, who's gonna want to pick up this book? That's why I made my characters so relatable. So that way whoever like is picks up my book, they can be like, oh wow, this is really relatable. Like the situation, the characters, the personalities, they can relate to all of them. So I always write with that in mind. And of course, I like romance. Like I think any book I write, I'll always have some romantic scenes. So I always think about like an age group of 18 and older because of that.
All right.
Yeah, definitely. I only have like probably one book that I'm writing that is like probably like anyone can read it, like from 12 years old and up. But like most of my books, I always write thinking, okay, this is gonna be like a hard X-rated, right? Just because of those romantic
Right.
scenes. But of course, as I said, with the people that comes to mind are people who are going to be able to relate to my character, the struggles that she's going to be going through, all the circumstances that she's going to face. There's like friendship, there's betrayal, there's jealousy, there's like everything in my book. It's not even action packed, and a lot of people won't even realize that until they start. They're like, "Oh my god, like how did this reach here?" They're gonna be like, "Wow, that's like a good like I tied it in so good that they're gonna be like, wow." Like it's like for everyone. Anyone can read it, 18 and above. Of course, anyone can read it because they can relate to it. So that was the main thing that goes to mind whenever I'm writing. But as I said, I always write for me first because it's a therapy for me. So I write. And then, of course, during my writing, then I'll be like, okay, let's see what else I can add to this and take out and stuff like that.
Awesome. And I also think another thing when it comes to research for any author is also the people who write in that genre. One of my most recent guests mentioned this, and it was another form of research for all authors is to read the books of that genre. Even if it's books that you would not typically read yourself, but you understand these are the types of books, the type of authors that people are interested in, be it historical fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, thriller, whatever. So for you, Antoinette, I was wondering if you could tell us about the authors that have really helped you come to terms of being a writer and really helping find your authorial voice, as well as mentioning authors that helped you create characters, good narrative structure, um, different themes that intertwine with each other, and just overall just telling a great story.
So basically, I like reading like fantasy books and romance book, of course. And like the writer L.J. Smith that wrote Vampire Diaries, I'm in love with that series. So like after reading that book and stuff, I like how his plot twists are. It's like always so unexpected. That's for me, it was always so unexpected. I'm like, you know what? When I write a book, this is how I want my book to be written. I want it to be so unexpected, like no one sees this coming. And that's one thing that I take in consideration when I'm writing. Of course, I did speak about J.K. Rowling. I've been talking
Mm-hmm.
about her a lot. She always comes to mind with everything, just mainly because of what she went through to be where she is. And then look at her now. I mean, like having what she went through, being rejected. And I'm like, whoa. And like, look at her. Like, she's just up there. So it reminds me that I can go on when I'm writing, I try to remember that, I can be something one day. As I said, it may not be now, months, years, but I can be there. But I just take in consideration that all the people who've went before me, they went through struggles too, right? And look at them, they're really successful. Some may not be where they want to be, but in our eyes, they are where we would want to be. So, so I try and aim for something like that.
Awesome. And sort of like the last question of like the marketing section, which is, do you have a good sense of who your readership is now, as opposed to starting off in the beginning, going back to the first question, which is crafting the story?
Yeah, I do. I have an idea. Being able to market to the right people, finding people who like the genre. So, of course, I joined Goodreads, and when I'm on there, I'm able to like see like what people are saying and what they want, and I'm like, oh, and it kind of helps, even especially in the writing groups like on Facebook and stuff. There'll be like people ask like random questions and be like, what do you guys look for in a book? And then, based on the responses, I'm like, wow, this is really helpful. So like I follow those things so that it can always be the back of my mind when I'm writing that, okay, I know how to find my audience and I know what they want based on what I'm seeing and hearing and everything like that. And of course, the feedback as well.
Awesome. That's actually really, really good. I'm actually glad that you have a lot of that feedback from your readers because, as I said in the beginning, that's really the true testament of an author. It's like they can make those connections with those readers that they've gained and will continue to gain throughout their journey. And speaking of journey, this kind of leads into this is going to be a heavy hitter question. So just brace yourself for this, and gonna have context to this question to add to it. So A year ago, I had on the show a self-published author, Natalie Wright, who discussed her book, Season of the Dragon. I met Natalie Wright at the LA Festival of Books, and on the show, she told me that that was her seventh book. I was under the impression that was her first book. And she
Oh,
said, no, that's not. It's my seventh book. And then she dropped a pearl of wisdom that I think is very important for all authors to really understand. And she said, the biggest lie an author can believe is that their first book, their debut book, is going to be the start of their legacy of their name. Now, I do want to give some, not what's the word, some exceptions. There have been many authors that have been successful with their debut novel that have skyrocketed, that have reached fame, and all the best to them. But on the offside, you do have those moments where sometimes your book, your debut book specifically, does not hit the audience that you are looking for and doesn't reach the notoriety you are anticipating. And that then goes back to the sense of imposter syndrome and that sense of why did I do this if it's not going to hit what I want? And she said that you may not get the audience that you're looking for or the notoriety you're seeking, but that shouldn't deter you because, as mentioned before, this is her seventh book. She wrote like 6 books before that, and it was her seventh book that really got her name started. And as she always tells with any new reader, it's like, if you enjoyed this book, Season of the Dragon, check out my others to show my, or just see my growth as an author. So for you, Antoinette, in your own opinion on this topic, how important is it for authors, especially young authors, really going into the book world, understanding that there is no guarantee that your debut book is going to reach the notoriety you are anticipating, but it should not deter you from writing if writing is truly your passion.
yeah. So I did hear that as well. Well, not really here, but when I did a lot of research, when I looked online and I saw a lot of people ask the same questions, and a lot of people would say, your first novel will not be, sometime it takes the 10th, the 12th, the 13th. I'm like, wow. At first, I'm like, oh, that was like before I was like publishing. I'm like, oh, wow, should I really do this then? Because, like, what's going on? Like, I don't even have so much books for it to be like the seventh book to be the one that makes it. So, of course, that kind of dampened my spirit. And I'm like, oh my God, like, seriously, should I do this then? Because, like, this is really, I searched to see if there was at least one person would say at least their first novel would be there, but there wasn't. So I'm like, okay, I'm still gonna go ahead and do it because, as you said, we can't let that deter us. If it's something that you love, writing is my passion. I've always been doing it for a long time. And I just feel like I just want someone to read my story. It's not even about the money and stuff like that. It's nothing like that. It's about being able to put my thoughts, my words, my imaginations out there in a creative way that will get people be like, wow, I need to read. I just want people to look forward to say, hey, she can write. Whatever book she's dropping, I'm going for it. Even if it's a book with just 10 pages, that's the kind of level I want. I want people to be like, wow, she's such a good writer. For example, right now I'm even listening to the Audible for Fourth Wing. It's my first time reading it because I've been seeing it.
Okay.
My God, oh my God, I'm so in love with the book. I'm like, wow, I'm so in love with the book. Like, and this is my first time. And I'm like, I can't wait to read the next series. So I want something when my readers read my book, they're like, whoa, I need to see what happens next. I need to know more from this author. Because right now I'm like looking at our other books, like, I need to see what else I need to be reading. Because I just love her writing style and how creative it is. So I want when readers take up my book, they look forward to me, me as an author. I want them to see what I'm seeing. Everything, I just want them to be able to can relate to it, relate to the characters, the plot. That's the most thing that I want because I just want my work out there for someone to say, wow, she can write. This is good. Like I look forward to reading her books. That's just what I want to hear. That's the main thing for me.
Beautifully said and beautifully spoken, Antoinette. And I definitely think, especially in the indie author community, we all want to support each other. We all want to encourage each other's successes because it is a small community. Well, I shouldn't say small anymore. Indie authors have been dominating the book publishing world. I mean, some of the like New York Times bestselling authors are indie authors, and the industry has sort of changed their viewpoint of self-published in the authors. I'm sure you would definitely agree, Antoinette, like doing research that 10 years ago, the dominant force was traditional publishing. And when people understood or learned about self-publishing, there was sort of that stigma that there wasn't a sense of professionalism with self-publishing. That's not the case anymore. Traditional publishing is still dominant, but now self-publishing and independent publishing is now on equal footing with traditional houses, and it's a huge accomplishment to see all indie authors rallying together. I've seen so many of that on Instagram. It blew me away, like the indie author community on Instagram, and it's like the level of support, the book Instagrammers, and everything. And that kind of leads to my next two questions, which is for you, Antoinette. Who have been your biggest supporters and hype men for this journey of yours? And have you ever gotten a sense of validation from fellow indie authors who have come across your book and provided their own feedback on it? Because it's one thing to join any industry, any field with the knowledge that you've learned and acquired. It's another thing entirely for when your peers see your work and recognize it and give credit where credit is due.
Well, one of the main people, of course, well, the only one was Kashina. She was the one who introduced me because at first I know that she published around two books, but they're like nonfiction. So I messaged her and I'm like, hey, I have a book that I want to publish, but I don't know what to do or where to start. And she was the one who introduced me to this young lady who helped me through everything. And, having her, both of them in my corner really helped because I knew nothing about this world. As I said, you read stuff online, but it's not the same as when someone can explain it to you in layman terms, especially to tell you the truth of it all. You see all those stuff online, but when someone can really say to you and tell you the truth, that makes a big sorry.
It's okay.
That have really that have been my greatest support. Other than that, I've not really had much experience with other in the order authors. Sorry.
It's all right.
Of course, I have them on Bookstagram and stuff, and we might like each other post or write a comment, but I've not really built any relationship like in that. I think that's one thing I need to work on, and that's what one of my supporter, Maisha, has been telling me. I need to go out there, meet people and stuff. I'm still kind of shy on that part. It's my fault, and I know that's one thing I need to work on is meeting other indie authors and just talking to them and stuff. That's one thing I know I need to work on. So it's on my fault for that part. So that's something I'm working on, and hopefully, as I said, it will add some more growth and development to me as an author.
Definitely. And also, you're here on the channel. Like, you are here on the digital stage telling your story to a lot of viewers and a lot of fellow authors. And let me be the first to say, Antoinette, from one indie author to another, this is definitely where you belong. I had a chance to read your story earlier today to get a good idea. And honestly, this is the place where you belong. This is your community. So, welcome to the fam, as my friends would say in the UK.
Thank you. Yeah.
And now arriving at the final question of the interview. So, Antoinette, with everything you've learned up to this point in your life about being an author and still learning about the industry to go forward to improve with your next books in the future, what is your word of wisdom to people out there who want to transition from writing as a hobby to possibly writing as a profession, to be a full-time author, or a person that wants to write stories and share them with the world?
Of course, first gain the self-confidence. You need to put yourself out there. Like, it doesn't make sense you procrastinate, because one thing that I thought about was this. There are movies made all every day, new movies. And all movies, like, there's some kind of similarity between the movies, but guess what? They add a little twist. And movies always need writers. Most of these movies nowadays and series are coming from books. So that means they're always gonna
Hmm.
want writers. So that's one thing that I used to motivate me, that someone might take my book up maybe next 20, 50 years when I'm dead, and probably take my book and be like, oh, let's make a movie. So I'm like, just remember that your book may be worth to someone out there. It's just, a matter of timing and patience, right? As I said, they always want they're out, they always have to be movies. Like, as I said, most movies are coming from books right now, like all of them, right? So that means they're always going to be searching the market for writers and books. So there's a chance that, of course, one day you might just be that person. So don't give up. And as they said, I think someone, I don't remember if it's the same reference, but I remember my just said to me, like, when you go to the supermarket to pick up, like, maybe fish, there's all sorts of fish, right? But you do want a fish, so you are gonna pick up one. So it's the same thing, and as on the customer. So it's the same thing as So it's the same thing as a writer. There are a lot of writers there, but there are a lot of readers. And your book might just be appealing to someone out of all the flock of books there. It might just be appealing for that one person. And sometimes all it takes is just that one person to take your book up and read it. And oh my God, it's up from there. Like, especially if you have someone who just really wants to be like, get your book out there and be like, oh my God, I read this book. It's so good. Everyone needs to read it, because that's how it starts off. It just takes maybe one person and that's it. It's like a chain reaction at times. So don't give up. Keep writing. Even as for me, as I said, I wrote a lot of books. I wrote and I put stuff down. And then what I did was, like, over the years, I would like splice them. So another thing, Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't need to write a book as fast as possible and put it out there. I wrote this book that I wrote from 2019. And then what I did, I took it up probably like a year after, went through it another year. And that's how I did it before eventually I'm like, okay, I'm going to publish this. So you can take your time and write. Writing is not going anywhere. They'll always need writers. Books will always need to be read. So it's not going anywhere. You can take your time, pace yourself, and write. Even I think even the writer that wrote Outlander, Outlander, my accent is coming out. Outlander. Outlander. I think it took her even 10 years to even write some of the books. So, and it's one of the most fascinating books, and it's even
It is.
a TV series that I'm in love with. So yeah, and look at that. Like, you might be like, oh my God, 10 years is a long wait. But no, it isn't. Because in that 10 years, you get to develop and you get to refine everything you're doing, so that when you put it out there, as I said, it might not be right away, but of course, someone's going to gravitate to it. Even if it's just one person, someone will. So keep writing if it's your passion. It's my passion, so I keep writing. It's like there was no way I just felt like overwhelmed. I felt like one of those superheroes with powers when you get all those surge of powers and you don't know, you just want to get it out there. So it's like for me with writing, like sometimes I can just see something and I'm like, wow, a story pops in my head and I just start writing. I don't do the whole, like, everyone has different writing style, but mine is not the one where I'll like sit down and be like, okay, this is the character, this is the plot. No, I'm sorry. I'm not like that. I'm like more of the person that sits down and just write.
Spontaneous.
Even the story that I wrote, this wasn't even the original plot. I don't even remember what it was, but this was never the original plot. Like, a lot of stuff came back after I put down my book in a year. So it's good, like, when you put your book down and leave it for a while. I think it helps because a lot of fresh ideas came from that when I did that. And even in the last part, when my book was about to publish in 2 weeks, I dropped, I think, maybe like a chapter was new. That one had just came like a couple weeks before it was published, and the editor was like, yeah, this sounds really good, and I just dropped it in. And I'm like, how comes I didn't have that before? Like, how come that slipped my mind? So it's good when you can put your stuff down and wait and just be patient and trust the process. Ideas will come, and of course you're going to get writer's block. I get it a lot of times. and stuff. But you have to find a way how to push through it. Of course, take a break sometime. That really helps. Yeah. I don't even remember your question, but I'm going on.
I think you answered it like perfectly. Like those are like great like words of wisdom, which honestly, Antoinette, are perfect and an excellent endpoint for this amazing author's interview. So, viewers, I hope you enjoyed this early morning interview, or wherever you're at in the world, a late um, interview, depending on where you are. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest today, Antonett Douglas. Antonett, thank you so much for joining us today. And before we officially end our wonderful session, where can people find and engage with you on social media, and where can people purchase a copy of your book?
So, of course, everyone's on TikTok. I'm on TikTok as Annie_love, book talk in brackets, and then I'm on Instagram as Antonett.Douglas author. Sorry, I have an accent, so sometimes I forget how to pronounce it. Okay, but author, and then of course, I'm on Facebook as Antonett Douglas Clarke. My book is available in Amazon, the paperback, and then of course on Barnes and Noble. But the ebook is via my website on PayHip, and everything is on all of my pages.
Awesome. I will link those down below in the description of this video. Make sure to follow Antonett. She is a lovely person. Recently, that's how we actually connected, of viewers, for this interview. And that's actually going back to what we talked about. Instagram is a hub of indie authors. So check them out, find them, and talk to them. Learn of their stories, find their books, and make that connection, because you never know. You just may make that person's day. And with that, listeners, this concludes this amazing author interview. Again, a huge thank you to our guest, Antonett, for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Antonett, I wish you the best of luck in your journey as an author, and I cannot wait to see what the future has in store for you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. You're a wonderful person, and I wish you all the best too. I know you're going to go places. You probably have already been places, but you'll probably go more places.
Thank you, Antoinette. I really do appreciate that. And I
You're
appreciate all of you viewers for joining us and for following my content for now would have been almost a year and a half. So be on the lookout for future episodes coming this week and the weeks after. More authors, more historians, as well as my guests for May's Historians Lounge, as well as more information of my third book, Michael, Last Angel of Earth. Pre-order and ARC applications are still up and coming, so be on the lookout for that. Until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.